Okay, moving on. Question number 3 comes in here from Darren. Hi there, Darren. Thanks very much for your question and for being part of the amazing WiggyWam community. So Darren says, we have approximately £800,000 in equity in our property and have been in discussions with our close friends since school about selling up and buying a joint property together that we both live in. We're considering spending approximately £1 million on the new property between us. We are both semi-retired and get on really well together. Our work is not location dependent, so we can work anywhere. We are thinking of buying a property somewhere in the north, as we currently live in London. We want a large property that we could turn into 2 separate accommodations. We're looking at all the benefits through rose-tinted glasses, including well into the future of having companionship should any of us pass away. My question is, what are the downsides of such an arrangement, particularly in terms of legally and financially? We both have grown-up children, so thinking here in terms of inheritance and any other problems we might not know of. Well, okay there, Darren, thank you for your question. Quite in-depth, that one, and interesting to see how you're looking towards the future in terms of your housing options and what may or may not be appropriate. The good news for you is that if you're selling coming out of London, everything up in the northeast or the north of the country is going to look considerably cheaper than it does in London, and you're probably going to get a lot better value for money, which is amazing. So it would be really interesting to see what property you do end up with. £1 million will buy you quite a nice chunk of property up in the north of the country, depending upon what it actually is you want to buy and where it is that you want to buy. Now, I want to address something in your question because you've raised a really interesting point. And the challenge is, let's say I'm assuming, and forgive me if I've got this wrong, but I'm assuming that there's 2 couples that are looking to buy one property, split it into 2, and then live there because you've both got your own bit of England, as it were. You've got your own space, and that's how you want to do it. Now, there's a couple of challenges, I would say, in terms of having one property, even if it is split into 2, owned by 4 people. And that comes from personal experience of owning properties with other people, and also the complications and the problems that come with unfortunately the next stage, which would be unfortunately when we all pass on and then we have to leave assets to other people, that there can be a lot of complications in terms of getting around inheritance issues, or actually what the beneficiaries of the estate want to achieve as a result of being left this property. Okay, so the one thing I'm going to say straight away is, if you are taking on a property, whether it's let's say it's currently a 4 or 5 bedroom home and you decide to split it into 2 flats, or you decide to buy a house and split it into 2 semis, whatever it is that you decide to buy, as well as doing the renovation works to convert the property, you might also want to think about doing an exercise with your solicitor, which is to split the legal title. Okay, now that probably sounds complicated. I promise you it isn't. It's an exercise that you can do with your solicitor. Depending upon the scale of the property, it's not going to cost you a huge amount of money to do this, and it is literally a paper exercise. I used to teach an example of this that I did when I bought a freehold with 2 flats, not dissimilar situation to this, although the values were significantly smaller. And what I did was actually split the freehold and created 2 new leasehold titles. Okay, and that massively increased the value of the properties because they were no longer tied to this awkward entity, which was the freehold. Okay. And so by splitting the legal title, which is, as I say, it's a paperwork exercise. It just means 2 new titles and then created at land registry, assuming that it's one property that you're converting into 2, and whether that's vertically, as in 2 flats, one on top of the other, or horizontally, as in 2 semis side by side. By splitting that legal title via your solicitor, then you end up with 2 separate properties with their own individual title, and then both families or both couples can reside there with their own piece of England, and that removes all the headaches as far as any inheritance tax, any inheritance that becomes due when you're passing that property on to some children, as it were, in the future. Because if you've got 4 people and you're trying to coordinate the sale of that property, which is still somebody else's home, it's going to be a nightmare, and there's going to be a lot of falling out. The point of doing it this way is that right from day one, it makes everything really clean. So God forbid, and it does happen, but God forbid you end up falling out and you decide to move. Well, you can do that free and easy and clear. There's no problems. You don't need to worry about asking for their permission to agree to sell, and then they won't buy you out because they can't afford to raise money against the property to pay you your chunk of equity. So you're stuck living next to somebody that you don't want to live next to. I mean, these are all the sort of nightmare scenarios that can go on. You just want to have a little bit more control and independence, if you like, around this sort of situation. Okay. So that's what I would do if I was in your shoes. The other thing to do, I would suggest quite carefully, if you've never gone through a building or conversion or development project yourself previously, then I would probably sit down as 2 or 4 very level-headed people over a cup of tea and thrash out some of the things that you want to achieve as a result of this exercise, and start to put pen to paper and map out a bit of an agreement between the 2 of you, including what you're going to do as a result of the renovation or conversion works of this property. Now, this is particularly important if you are financially imbalanced coming into the transaction. Okay. And this also applies to the purchase of the property originally. But when you're doing the conversion and renovation works, this is a time of great stress potentially. It's very easy for people to fall out. It's very easy for things to go wrong on site, and then you end up in an argument, and then tempers flare up, and then things get said that shouldn't perhaps get said, and all the rest of it. So it's about having a working agreement as to who's going to take responsibility for what, who's paying for what, and in the end, in the event of a default, of an issue, of a problem, how do they get resolved? Okay, because the last thing you want is to go into this project, rose-tinted glasses, as you say, great relationship together, and then you end up falling out as a result of it. It's just going to eat you all up, and there's going to be a lot of more ill feeling because of the length of the relationship that's been lost. So I hope that helps in terms of the approach. And just to add to that financial imbalanced equation, you mentioned that the property value will be about £1 million that you're looking to buy, and you've got about 800,000 of equity. Now, I don't know whether you're looking at putting 500,000 each into the transaction, which would be the most sensible way to do it. Okay, because then you're, as I say, financially equal. You're equal partners, if you like, into this whole project. As I say, going in financially unbalanced or imbalanced may not be such a good idea unless there's some mechanism where everybody agrees, well, actually, you're putting 800,000 in, we're only putting in 200,000. How does that work in terms of ownership? Particularly, as I've just mentioned, splitting the title. It's very easy in black and white if it's a dead straightforward exercise. If you're buying a bigger property and you're putting 800,000 in, so you get 80% of the value of the property and they get 20% of the value of the property, that's when you end up in all sorts of issues, because, as I say, you end up back to that situation of 4 people owning one property, and if they decide to ask you to sell or vice versa, that then could become a legal minefield to work your way through. So I hope that's given you a comprehensive answer there, Darren. Wishing you the best of luck. It sounds exciting. Sounds like it could be a really great project. And I wish you all the best of luck, because it'd be wonderful to, shall we say, grow old with those school friends. And as you say, you've got people there around you. You've got that companionship long into the future, and I hope it all works out for you. So let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help as well. But good luck. All right.